Hi everyone, I'm Sean. This is Radio, and right now we're going to go over the why for rule number 2, show don't tell. Why is this important? Why is this a rule that we hear whenever we take any kind of writing course or read any kind of book on the craft of writing? Inevitably, this rule, show don't tell, pops up. Must be important. Let's try to figure out why it's important. It's important to me. I'm going to spend quite a while talking about this. So I'll give you my version of why I think show don't tell is important, specifically with regard to evocation, since that's the topic that we're dealing with right now. Before we get into it, let's start with an example. So, here we go. Joan was knife. Okay, so here we have a sentence. This sentence tells a story. It tells us who it's about. It tells us what's happened. Joan was stabbed. It even tells us how Joan was stabbed with a knife. The problem with this is that it tells us all these things. If this were a news story, this would be great. We have the who, we have the what, we have the how. We just need to fill in the why and the where, and we'd be good to go. In terms of fiction writing, it doesn't evoke very much. It's not very evocative. But what does that mean? What does it mean to evoke? Evoke some kind of reaction, evoke what exactly are we trying to evoke when we're writing? What I'd like you to do now is I want you to take a stab at this. Haha, no pun intended. Actually, it was intended. But try to evoke something. Take this sentence, take this one sentence story and turn it into something that's a little bit more evocative. Doesn't have to be long, 1 or 2 sentences, and we'll see where you end up. And then I'll try my hand at it afterwards. So I'll just type pause here so that you know to pause the video. And then a few seconds, I'm going to continue on. Okay, so hopefully you have your version of the Joan was stabbed with a knife story. I'm going to try it now. So I have my version, which was Joan felt the blade scrape against her ribs as it went in. All right, there. So this for me is a little bit more evocative. It's very particular to me because I get squeamish around the idea of knives cutting against bone. Just there's a sound that would make, or there's a sound that I imagine that would make that evokes a reaction out of me. And because it evokes a reaction out of me, this is how I would possibly write this particular section. Different people have different reactions to different things, or you'll react to the idea of stabbing in a different way. So you want to try to personalize it, make it the most evocative experience that you think being stabbed would be. Maybe somebody might make it actually all about the shock, right? If you've ever been stabbed, and hopefully you haven't, but I've heard of people who have, you actually don't know what's going on. You sort of look down and your body goes into shock. So maybe that's the way that you'll describe this particular experience. The point being, what you want to do when you show is you want to put yourself into, or you want to put the reader into the body of the character. You want the reader to experience the world, experience that particular experience the way that they would experience, not to be too redundant. But if you do that, what you do is you put the reader directly into the story, because you put the reader into the, I guess you could call it the sensorium of the story, the senses of it, the feel of it, the emotions of it. The character's story becomes the reader's story, and that's how you compel the reader to continue on reading, because if they are now part of the story, they are going to want to find out what happens next. And that's why the showing is important, because you really want to draw that reader in, draw the reader into that world, and get them feeling the things that the character's feeling so that they will be invested in the story. So there it is. That's the why for the show don't tell rule. We'll go into a little bit more detail in terms of what this means. What is it that's particularly evoked, and why this compulsion actually occurs for the reader in terms of evocation.